You know, history is packed with these epic stories of empires and legendary figures, but sometimes the most incredible tales are the ones that are kind of tucked away, almost forgotten. Well, today, we're pulling one of those stories right into the spotlight. It's a saga about a king who stared down chaos from within his own kingdom and a colonial giant from overseas. And against all the odds, he actually won.
So think about this for a second. We're in the 1700s, an age where European colonial powers seemed pretty much unstoppable. Could a local Indian king with a local army really take on and defeat one of them? Honestly, it sounds like something straight out of a movie script, but it was a very real question back then.
And the answer to that question? It's a huge, emphatic yes. Down in the kingdom of Travancore, in what's now Kerala, a ruler didn't just push back against European expansion, he handed them a flat-out, decisive defeat. His name was Marthanda Varma, and his story is this amazing blend of resilience, brilliant strategy, and a vision that literally redrew the map of southern India.
But okay, before he could even think about facing a foreign enemy, Marthanda Varma had a huge problem at home. He had to save his own kingdom from tearing itself apart. When he took the throne in 1729, the state of Venad, which he'd later turn into Travancore, was an absolute mess. The king had the title, but the real power was in someone else's hands.
The main troublemakers inside the kingdom were this group called the Ettuveettil Pillamar, or the Eight Lords. Now you gotta understand, these weren't just some grumpy nobles causing a fuss. They were basically a shadow government, a council of hereditary chiefs who controlled huge territories and, crucially, the kingdom's military. And their power was just immense. I mean, look at this. They weren't just advisors, they ran the show. They were governors, they controlled the temple fortunes, they could even find the king. The king needed their permission just to build a palace. And their end game? To get rid of the royal family completely and take over. They'd even assassinated a previous king to get closer to that goal.
So, Marthanda Varma knew he couldn't build anything strong on such a rotten foundation. He gets the throne at just 23 years old, and what does he do? He launches this absolutely relentless campaign to take back control, using what historians call a blood and iron strategy.
And boy, did he move fast. First, he takes out the rival claimants to the throne, the puppets propped up by the Eight Lords. Then, he turns his entire army on the lords themselves. He just wages this systematic war for years, chipping away at their power until, finally, total victory. The once all-powerful lords were captured and executed.
And when I say his victory was absolute, I mean it. He didn't just beat his rivals, he erased them. Their mansions were torn down, all their stuff was seized, and their families were sold into slavery. And then, in this incredibly powerful symbolic move, he takes the wood from their demolished palaces and uses it to build new government buildings. He's literally building his new kingdom from the ruins of the old corrupt system.
This quote really captures the mood of the time. You have to remember, for like 2 centuries, these lords had just thrown the whole region into chaos and violence. So when Marthanda Varma came in, his ruthless campaign wasn't just seen as some power grab. It was seen as him finally bringing justice and order to a kingdom that had been suffering for generations.
But you know, unifying his own kingdom was just round one. A much, much bigger threat was showing up on the horizon. The Dutch East India Company. They're a global superpower, and they see this newly powerful kingdom controlling the pepper trade as a direct threat to their business. A collision was pretty much guaranteed.
So the Dutch declare war in 1739. By early 1741, their expeditionary force lands and takes the key port of Colachel. But Marthanda Varma, fresh off his victories at home, doesn't hesitate. He marches his army to meet them head-on. And on August 10, 1741, they clash in a battle that would go down in history. Against all expectations, the Travancore army wins a stunning, decisive victory.
This was a classic David versus Goliath fight. I mean, on one side, you have the Dutch with their superior European firepower and highly trained professional soldiers. But on the other, you have Marthanda Varma. He had the home field advantage, an army that was fired up and fighting to survive, and a brilliant military mind that knew how to counter the European playbook.
Now here's where the story takes a really interesting twist. Among the Dutch soldiers captured was one of their commanders, a guy named Eustachius De Lannoy. Marthanda Varma, always the pragmatist, saw De Lannoy's skill. So instead of executing him, he offers him a job. De Lannoy accepts, becomes the Valia Capitan, the great captain of the Travancore army, and ends up playing a huge role in the kingdom's future.
You see, winning at Colachel wasn't the end of the story for Marthanda Varma. It was really just the beginning. Now that his kingdom was secure from threats both inside and out, he started this massive project to modernize everything, turning Travancore into a powerful, centralized, modern state.
First thing on the list, the military. With his new Captain De Lannoy's help, he builds a standing army of about 50,000 men, and they're trained in European-style tactics and discipline. He didn't just copy ideas, though. He built the tech. He sets up a foundry to make his own cannons and builds this massive line of fortifications to protect his borders. He literally turned his enemy's strength into his own.
And he was just as smart about the economy. He created a state monopoly on pepper, which basically cut the Dutch out, and made sure all that insane profit from the spice trade went straight to his government. He built roads, canals, all the infrastructure needed for good commerce. And in a move that was way ahead of its time, he ordered the first systematic land survey to create a fair and efficient tax system.
But maybe, just maybe, the most remarkable thing he ever did came in 1750. After all those years of war and building a nation, Marthanda Varma did something that would define his legacy in a way no battle ever could.
The ceremony was called the Thrit Padmanabhaswamy. He took this kingdom that he had fought for, that he had bled for, that he had built from the ground up, and he formally donated the entire thing to his family's deity, Sri Padmanabha. From that day on, the kings of Travancore weren't absolute rulers anymore. They were regents, servants of the deity, who govern in his name.
Marthanda Varma passed away in 1758. I mean, think about the transformation. The kingdom he inherited was fractured, weak, and about to collapse. The kingdom he left behind was unified, rich, militarily strong, and had this deep spiritual purpose. He forged a true modern state out of total chaos.
So that brings us to the big question, right? Why isn't his name, and the names of so many others like him, as famous as it should be? His victory was one of the very first times an Asian power dealt a decisive defeat to a European one. It's a story of resistance and nation building that kind of flips the usual script. So why do we let some of history's most incredible winners just fade away? It's definitely something worth thinking about.